Welcome, everybody, to the Be Ready Utah webinar today. We are glad to have you here. I believe we are rolling at this point, and this is going to be a great period of time to share with you all. We're glad you've decided to join us. In recognition of the National Preparedness Month, which is September, we decided that providing a presentation today within our webinar on disaster and emergency preparedness would be the most beneficial to all of you. We look forward to sharing this time with you. During this webinar, you can access closed captions by going to the square at the bottom of your screen that has two C's in it. If you do not see that square, go ahead over to the three dots that says More underneath and click on that. That's where you are able to access closed captions service. Now, also, throughout this webinar, you may submit questions in the chat box. You'll notice that at the bottom of the screen. As we are able to, we will answer questions as we progress throughout the webinar. Do not use the Q&A, question and answer box, because we will not be servicing that one. Like I say, be sure to focus on the chat box. Go ahead with the presentation. I would like to introduce you all to the Be Ready Utah team, many of whom you may be aware of. But to be sure you all know who we are, I would like to introduce Mr. Brian Stinson, who is our specialist in Be Ready Families.
Hey, y'all.
Perfect. And I would like to introduce Mr. James Ray, who is our specialist in Be Ready Utah outreach. Sorry, Be Ready Business outreach. And Mr. Jeff Johnson, who is our specialist with Be Ready Schools outreach. And then also Ms. Marilyn Hoff, who is the earthquake lady, and she is very well known by many throughout the state of Utah. And lastly, my name is Anna Boynton, and I'm the Be Ready Utah section manager. As the team, I would like to say we're glad you're joining us. Let's go ahead with the presentation, Brian. Now, before we actually start the presentation, I am really interested to know, and you may be as well, what is your preparedness level? How prepared are you? Let's go ahead and take a poll and let all of you kind of evaluate where you feel you stand currently at this time regarding living a lifestyle of preparedness. Go ahead on the screen. You'll notice that the box provides various answers. Go ahead and log in, read through them carefully, and choose, where do you stand? Wow, numbers are rising. Looking good. It's looking like right now, many feel they probably could survive a disaster for a month or so. We do have a few who are ready for the apocalypse. Awesome. Okay, it looks like the outstanding number is in the realm of feeling like that probably you could survive for a month or so. That is wonderful. I look forward to the time we share today, and hopefully when you reevaluate yourself, you will feel that you can bring on the apocalypse. Go ahead and hit the X in the top right corner of the poll box, and we'll move on with the webinar. Go ahead. There it is. Okay. Our focus is going to be on disaster and emergency preparedness. Enjoy the video.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hey. Yeah? Did you know that in an emergency, local phone lines are probably going to be jammed? But long distance numbers might still actually work.
Really?
Yeah. So last night we
Oh, it sometimes does this. I
called
apologize.
National Aunt Mabel in Colorado to be our out-of-state emergency contact. If something happens now, all my family's going to text her and let her know that we're okay.
Huh. I should do that.
Okay, what is a disaster? We hear in emergency management quite often, actually all the time, the talk of disasters. Well, it's important to know what is the disaster definition. It is a destructive occurrence that overwhelms the resources of individuals, families, and communities. Understanding that, it will help you evaluate yourself better when it comes to preparedness. Slide. Before, during, and after a disaster, I ask you, who is responsible for you and your family's safety? Slide. You are. You are. It is up to you to be prepared. And you'll notice at the bottom of this slide, it says, make a plan, get a kit, be informed, and get involved. Slide. Personal and family preparedness. It really consists of being self-reliant and having an I can do this frame of mind, and then moving forward in actually doing this. Next slide. Okay. In Be Ready, Utah, we have defined personal and family preparedness into 4 tenets. Make a plan, get a kit, be informed, and get involved. Those are four pieces that you want to be sure to memorize, have it ring through your head, and be committed to each of the 4 of them. Now, I would like to go ahead and let Brian take the show and talk more about being informed.
Okay, thank you all for being here. Can you hear me? I hope so. So yeah, we're talking about these 4 tenets: make a plan, get a kit, be informed, get involved. And we start with the third one, being informed. Why do we start with that one? Because knowledge is power. Take the time before an emergency occurs to learn about the risks you might face and what you need to do to prepare for them. What skills do you need to learn? There's a lot of different things that somebody just asked a question about preparing on a budget. There's a lot of things in emergency preparedness that doesn't cost money, and this is one of them. You need to do some research. It might take some time, but this is about learning what things could happen in your area. So the first thing we're going to talk about, what hazards are in your area? Think about your neighborhood. What kinds of things have happened there in the amount of time that you've lived there? We know in the state, we always talk about earthquakes. We had that one in Draper a few years ago, but we have a lot of flooding. We have a lot of wildfires. What other kinds of things happen in your area? Here's a list of some things that could happen or have happened in Utah. We don't really concern ourselves too much with hurricanes here. We do get some after effects. We did get a lot of rain from that hurricane in the Pacific recently. But here's some of the things, but this is not the end all and be all. If you want more information about what things could happen, you can go to the beready.utah.gov website and scroll down where it says hazards and click on that. That gives you some information about things in Utah. Now, for your specific area where you live, you need to talk to your local emergency manager, or you can even just do some searches online for emergencies that have happened, hazards that are prone to your area that you live in. After you learn about the hazards that can be in your area, you need to prepare for the impacts from those hazards. So what is the difference between the hazard and the impact? Well, it's like if we're preparing for an earthquake, are you preparing for the shaking of the ground? Maybe. But after the shaking is over, then what? What are you going to be preparing for? Things could happen like power outages. The water and sewer might not work. Natural gas supplies might not be functional. Transportation and infrastructure, if the roads are all broken up or blocked, that might be an issue. Communication, phone lines might be down. Internet lines, internet could be out. Shelters, what kind of shelter? Is your house stable? Economic hazards could also happen. What could happen if you can't get money from your bank because there's no power and you can't use the ATM? Mental and emotional issues could also be something that happens if we're going through a really difficult time, from loss of family members, loss of your home. That's a really difficult time for everyone. Food and supply chain, if the transportation and infrastructure is down, it's a good possibility the grocery stores are not going to have things as well. Your health could be an issue. If you're on special medications and you don't have access to those, that could be an issue. Safety and security. Sometimes bad things happen after the emergency because people try and take advantage of those things. And also those government services that many of us are reliant on could be not available. So that's the difference between the hazards themselves and the impacts. Now, I talked a little bit about learning to prepare for those hazards, and that specifically would be learning protective actions. Now, what are protective actions? The idea is if you don't know how to survive the disaster, then the rest of your plans don't really even matter. You could have that 1,000 pounds of wheat down in your basement, but if you don't survive the earthquake, it's not going to do you any good. So, protective actions. This is one we learned in elementary school. If your clothes are on fire, what are you supposed to do? You stop, drop, and roll. Okay, so that is the protective action for clothes on fires. Stop, drop, and roll. That helps you survive that incident right at that moment. Let's talk about another one. How about if your house is on fire? You're not going to stop, drop, and roll your house, so what do? You've got to get out of your house. So you want to get low and go. And then once you're outside, you need to stay outside of your home. Again, the protective action for if your house is on fire. What about an earthquake? We had the shakeout back in April where we practiced this protective action. I hope you can remember it. Drop, cover, and hold on. The whole idea is you need to drop to the floor. Otherwise, the earthquake could throw you to the floor and you could get injured in doing that. So drop to the floor, get yourself down there and get stable. Find cover. If nothing else, cover the back of your head. Cover your head because for most of us, our head is the most important part of our body. And if you have cover, hold on to that cover so that you can stay underneath it. So that's earthquake protective actions. You don't want to go running out of your house. You don't want to go running into a house. Wherever you are, drop, cover, and hold on until the shaking stops. What about if there's lightning? Nope, it's not hold up your metal golf club. That is not a good protective action for lightning. How about this one? When thunder roars, go indoors. That's an easy one to remember. My kids tell me that all the time if we're outside and there's thunder. Dad, when thunder roars, go indoors. So that's protective actions like this are great things you can share with your kids and help them to understand those things. What about a flood? Turn around, don't drown. Most people, or at least half of drowning deaths in floods are from people driving into flooded areas. You can't see what's underneath the water. The road could be washed out. Remember, it only takes 6 inches to knock you off your feet. A foot of flowing water will float most cars, and 18 inches could even float an SUV. Okay, protective actions when you hear an alert message. You know that sound that you get on your phone or on the radio or television. What do you need to do when there's an alert? Listen to the EAS. The EAS is the emergency alert system. That's what we listen to. That's what you get on the television and on the radio. And the WIA is a little bit different. The wireless emergency alert, that's the one you get on your phone, but you need to check and see what the emergency is that's going on. If you have a weather alert radio, then you can turn on the weather alert radio and it will also be broadcasting that specific alert and let you know what to do and what the protective action is that you need to be taking. If there's a pandemic, we all know this one, don't we? Yep. We all made it through the 2020 COVID. That was an interesting experience for all of us. But the idea is practice social isolation. You want to wash your hands a lot, keep your hands off your face, those kinds of things. So that was one that we all went through. And of course, we all want to stock up on toilet paper. But you need to do that before the emergency happens. Okay, so pandemic, protective action, practice social isolation. Okay, so those were protective actions. Let's talk about insurance a little bit. We all love to talk about insurance. Earthquake and flood insurance is not covered by regular homeowners insurance. Most people don't know that. They think, well, if something happens to my house, I've got homeowners insurance. But earthquake and flood are not covered because that's not something that happens in your house. It's something that could happen outside to the whole neighborhood. So you've got to get an additional thing with that. Average flood insurance claim is about $43,000. Now, it may have gone up since we first got that number. Average flood insurance policy for a year, it sounds a little expensive. It's about $700, but that's not very much at all compared to the $43,000 that a claim could be. So you need to check with your provider about what hazards are covered by your insurance and talk about what rates you could have. All homeowners insurance offer earthquake and flood insurance. Talk to your provider about that and what kind of rates you could get. Again, it could cost you a little bit. Sometimes it's a little painful for that, but it's worth the peace of mind.
Did you hear about all that flooding going on?
Yeah, sounds pretty bad. I hope it doesn't happen here.
It could. Did you know homeowners insurance doesn't cover flooding?
Really?
Yeah. So we're going to get it. It'll take 30 days to take effect.
Huh. I should do that.
Anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. Okay, so one thing I want you to think about with that little commercial right there, the PSA, many of you, according to our poll, actually have a pretty good start on emergency preparedness, and that's great. We'd invite you to be ambassadors, do what these our little PSAs do, and talk to your friends, your families, and your neighbors and coworkers, maybe about some of the things that you've done to prepare for an emergency. Don't go overboard. Don't overload them with too much information. Just tell them about one thing that you did and maybe show them how to do it and invite them to that you would be able to help them to get that done, because we're all in this together, and the more we reach out and help each other, the more we're all going to be prepared as a community. Okay, the last thing I want to share in my section of this is talking about reliable sources of information. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, before, during, and after an emergency, there's a lot of different places that you can find information. A lot of people are willing to teach you what they think is important to do and to prepare and what kinds of things you need to have in an emergency. You can go online and do social media searches, and there's lots of lists and lots of stuff out there of people willing to give you information. But not all of it's reliable. If you're making your plans and you're getting your kits and you're being informed about emergencies, make sure the information you're getting is reliable. Now, we, of course, like to say that beready.utah.gov is Sorry about that. Reliable source of information. We have tested the information that we put out there. We have many years of experience in emergency preparedness study and promotion and planning and sharing. We have more than 75 years experience in the Be Ready Utah section about emergency preparedness. Our sources of information also come from reliable sources. We get a lot of information from USU Extension that has done a lot of actual scientific studies on things about emergency preparedness. And we've done a lot of field work and work as well to find out, like, for example, we talked to the Utah Department of Environmental Quality about what to do about water storage and treatment. They're a great source of information as well. So you need to be careful about sources before an emergency happens. Make sure that you're getting credible sources, not just something that you found on the internet. Another thing you want to think about during an emergency, reliable sources of information. One thing we saw during the Draper earthquake, there was a lot of false rumors going around about seismograph specialists saying that there was a quake, that the quake that happened was just leading up to a much larger one that was going to happen in about an hour. It was going to get a lot bigger. That is absolutely untrue information. For one thing, no one can predict when an earthquake is going to happen, let alone the magnitude of that earthquake. So that was one of the rumors that we were putting down. We were trying to help people understand that you can't predict earthquakes. We know ballpark, like for example, we think there's a 50% chance that in the next 50 years, we might have a 5.0 earthquake. That's about as good as we can predict. And that's still, a 50-50 chance. So make sure that the information you're getting during an emergency is also an authoritative and reliable source of information. And then after an emergency, there's also going to be a lot of people that try and take advantage of those that are in a bad situation. Either those that are in the bad situation or those that want to help others that are in a bad situation. Make sure if you're wanting to donate or something like that, that you're doing it to reliable sources. And one other thing to think about, in the event of an emergency, we talked about the emergency alert system, the EAS. KSL News Radio 1160 AM, they're the one that's contracted, they're the radio station contracted with the state to be the one that the state gives that emergency information to first. Now, that does not mean that the other television radio stations do not get that information as well, but we just give that information to KSL first, and they are under contracted obligation to give it out to everyone. So that as a state, when we're giving out emergency alerts, we only have to give it to one source. We'd also, again, invite you to go to beready.utah.gov. We have tons of great information on there, all about making plans, getting kits, being informed, and getting involved, plus other areas of emergency preparedness as well. So that's kind of in a nutshell, the part about being informed. And again, this part doesn't take any money. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little research, but that's a great thing for you to do when you're first getting started to prepare for emergencies. And I just want you to remember, as part of the last thing, just because you see it on the internet, our president Abraham Lincoln said, don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. Remember that when you're getting information during an emergency. Okay, next, I talked about being informed. Our next speaker is going to be the great James Ray. We'll talk about making a plan.
All right, thank you. And I'm excited to talk with you. Let's bring up another poll. I'm really curious where you are in making your disaster plan. And so you'll see this next poll pop up. Again, it's anonymous. Everybody can participate. But we want you to take about 30 seconds to read it, submit your answer. So Brian, go ahead
Is
and
it
pull that.
launching? Hasn't launched yet. Okay, we're having issues.
Haven't seen it yet.
All right, let's see. Give me just a minute here.
All right.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. So where are you in making your disaster preparedness plan? Go ahead and read through those options and select the one that applies to you. Again, this is anonymous, so don't worry. But in about 30 seconds, we'll kind of close it down. We're seeing polls kind of roll in, and then soon we'll share the results with everybody. So while that's happening too, if Benjamin Franklin said that if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And no, winging it is not a plan. It is important that we make a plan as well as share that plan with those we love and care about, and even practice the plan to help others. This helps us remember, it helps build muscle memory. The emergency plans involve having shelter plans, evacuation plans, family communication plans, and the communication plan is an essential part for reunification, which is so important. So let's go ahead and post those poll results. Let's see where we're at. There you go. There's not quite the traditional bell curve you see here. And we're kind of split even between I want to, but it ain't done yet, versus be patient, we're working on it. There are quite a few, though, that have you've made it, everybody knows about it, but you haven't practiced it yet. So really good point in the fact that once you've created a plan, it's important that everybody in your circle knows the plan, but then you've also practiced that plan as well. So go ahead and close that poll down with that X that's up in the upper right-hand corner of the poll itself. And then we're going to take a quick look at what constitutes a communication plan. So on the next slide, one thing we learn is that communication is often that first thing that is lost. Communication is all about both receiving information, but then also giving and making sure that those that we've communicated that they know that we know what they said, kind of thing. So it's also important, as Brian was talking about, that we have accurate information. And the reason is because fear is mostly based in the things we don't know about, but we become more confident when we know accurate, good information, and we can act on it and overcome it. This communication planning is very central to our mental and emotional recovery, because our efforts in reunifying, making that connection, reconnecting with our loved ones is such an important part of our disaster recovery for everyone. So on our next slide, as Brian said earlier, there's lots of warning systems. And how will you receive the message? And maybe that's coming from authorities, but maybe the message is coming from family when you're trying to communicate. And so which system, when you're creating a plan, consider what system are you planning on using with the family. And if you can't communicate on that system because for whatever reason it's down, what's the alternative? And make sure that the family members know how to use that system. They've tried it and have tested that out. So on the next slide, there is we were talking to some of the phone system experts, those providers, and we found out, did you know that the phone communication system is built to handle Mother's Day level traffic? If it goes beyond Mother's Day level traffic, phone traffic, then the system starts to bog down and prioritize the highest payer. And then people start to get busy signals and they can't communicate over the phone system. So the interesting story, when the Bluffdale earthquake swarm back in 2019 happened, there was a magnitude 3.7. And there was no damage to the communication system. And yet, a couple minutes in, people were getting on their phones and calling their loved ones saying, "Whoa, did you feel that?" A couple minutes in, people were not able to get into there anymore. The system jammed up. There were so many people on the phones, they couldn't communicate. So they turned to texting. Texting does use less bandwidth. That's a great option. But so many people even got on texting that the text bandwidth even jammed up. And so people weren't able to talk that way as well. So any system, whether it's cellular based or even wire based, both have a limitation to what they can handle. There's only so many lines. And so even in that Bluffdale earthquake, we found out that communication systems dropped. They were no longer able to communicate. After that, people started getting online on social media and trying to communicate that way. And that was working at the time. But interesting situation that people are trying to communicate. Even an infrastructure that isn't damaged even has problems. So can you imagine the day when, let's say we do have the big 7.0 earthquake or other disasters, that communication systems can go down? Now, if you don't have a communication plan, do your family members know how to contact each other? Here's another interesting fact. The local landlines, the local cell towers are on a not long distance wise, but the local system is built on a different system than the long distance. So when people are all getting on the phones at the same time, they're talking on those jam up, the local system is down. I can't reach my neighbor, but I could get on that long distance line and still contact somebody in a different state or out of the area. And so this is why it's important to have an out-of-state contact or somebody on a long distance line that you can connect with. And this could be a relative, a close friend. Just make sure all the family members know who what that contact number is. And you can even reciprocate and say, hey, if you have something happen in your area, plan on contacting us, right? We could be that person for you. Now, whoever that person is, make sure everybody knows that that's the one you connect with. That's the one where everybody checks in. And then they're in a really good position to then relay information to other people when local systems are jammed up. So on the next slide, another section of a communication plan would be considering having 2 meeting places as part of your plan. One could be outside of your home, the other could be outside of your neighborhood. But when you're writing your plan, be specific. It needs to be a specific place and make sure that everybody sees it, gets there, you've practiced it. Especially if it's like outside the neighborhood, on a day-to-day basis, we're at work, we are at school, maybe we're out on the road going shopping, whatever it is. Not everybody is always together. And so when everybody's gone, and if something happens during that time, does everybody know where to meet? Because if I can't call, and if you have pre-communicated that plan with everybody, then they'll say, okay, this is a bad situation. We talked about it. The plan was to meet at this location if we couldn't communicate. And so that's where I'm going to go. And then we can reunify there. So make sure that that is also part of your plan. On the next slide, we'll talk about sheltering plans. Now, this is basically you staying put, right? And also considering plan what to do if things stop working where you're at. Like, for instance, if the electricity goes out, what's your alternative? What's that plan? If the gas goes out, what's your alternative? If the water system goes out, what's your alternative? If you can't flush the toilet anymore, right? What is your alternative? Those can be parts of your plan. So on next slide as well, in extreme heat or extreme cold, you can only last about 3 to 4 hours without proper shelter in those extreme conditions. But if utilities are out, it's often easier to shelter in maybe 1 or 2 rooms. You can designate that 1 or 2 rooms to make a warm room or a cold room, depending on those temperatures. We got a lot more specific information on that on the Be Ready Utah website, so check that out. On the next slide as well, it's interesting that in more than 90% of emergencies, the best place to be is within the walls of your own home until the situation passes. You see, at home, you have good shelter. You have your family. You have your supplies. You even have neighbors around you as part of a support network. So consider what you can do even at the home front and the things to have while you're there. Next, if you can't be at home, let's talk about evacuation plans. Let's say that person comes to the door and knocks on the door and says, you've got to evacuate. So evacuation may be necessary if the area you are in during an emergency becomes unsafe. So, hey, Brian, if you want to advance the slide. The evacuation also includes where to go, how to get there, what to bring well before the emergency ever happens. So when you're thinking about your plan, consider those. Where are we going to go? How are we going to get there? What are we going to bring? Now, this also includes for work, your workplace. You have a job. Where are you going to go for your workplace evacuation? How are you going to get there, and what do you need to bring with you if you have to evacuate from your workplace? And then also consider the local schools. If you have kids, ask the school, what is their evacuation plan? Get familiar with that. Next slide. It's important to plan for what roadways that you're going to need to take. It's also important to plan that it's probably going to take time to evacuate. That means sitting in your car and knowing I got to turn my engine off so the gas doesn't go out. Make sure that you plan a lifestyle change so that you can live day to day, just keeping your gas tank half full, more than half full, right? Don't let it get below half. It's painful to not be able to get gas when all the gas stations are empty and it's evacuation time and your gas tank is on empty. So consider keeping that gas tank at least half full at all times. Next, let's watch a little video about keeping those fuel tanks full.
Welcome to the Be Ready Buzz. If you ever have to evacuate from somewhere, your vehicle will most likely be your primary mode of transportation out of the area. And that would be a really bad time to run out of gas. So don't be fuelish. Always keep your gas tanks at least half full. Now, prepare and share what you learned about fuel in the car with someone you care about. Thanks for joining us on the Be Ready Buzz.
Now, That's fun. On the next slide, if you were fuelish, right? Let's say you did run out of gas. I saw a question earlier in the chat that says if you have to evacuate and the roads are broken up and from an earthquake, how are you going to evacuate, right? Well, sometimes walking is the solution, but look, take a moment right now. Look at those shoes you're wearing right now. Can you walk a few miles in those? Consider keeping a good pair of walking shoes handy. That could be in your vehicle, it could be at work, something. Also, when it's time to evacuate, it's really good to have a good semblance of what you need already in mind or written down as well. An interesting story: there was an emergency. Those times when firefighters come knock on your door and they go knock, knock, knock. You have 5 minutes to get out of here. And there was this one person that was given that command: you've got to get out of here in 5 minutes, grab what you need. Well, they didn't have a prioritized grab and do list anywhere. And when you're in the heat of it, you forget things, right? So this person wandered throughout the house trying to figure out what it was that they needed. And when the time was up, the only thing that they walked out with was a painting. Maybe that painting was super important to them, right? But the case is that when disaster strikes, when it's in the heat of the moment, you can't remember. So having that pre-thought out grab list, something written down of what to grab, if you don't, not everything can fit in the kit, right? In just that bag. But sometimes there are other things you need to grab that are too large or impractical to have as part of your disaster supply kit. But prioritize a list, right? Have the very most important things at the top of that list. And then if you can, attach that list to your disaster supply kit so that when it's time to grab and go, you can be like, oh, that's a good reminder. I have this list of things that I either need to grab or things I need to do, like locking the doors or turning off the oven or, whatever it is. Again, with this list, personalize it to what is the most valuable to you. So there are also other people within your network, people with access and functional needs. You can consider their evacuation needs. People with mobility needs, communication or language needs, mental or physical needs, visual or hearing needs, right? Consider them in not only just evacuation, but your sheltering and communication plans. Next, let's talk about important information, copies of important information. This is an important part of your plan, but when you're developing your plan, if you have to go, especially in evacuations, consider what are those important documents, those important information that you have to bring with you for your recovery. Oftentimes in evacuations, people leave their home or their building or their school and they never re-enter again because something happened to it. And you want to make sure you have on hand that very important information. So on the next slide, it's important to store those original things in a protective, safe, or waterproof something. And also make sure that more than one person knows the location of these important items so that they can access them if you're unavailable or incapacitated, or you just don't want that information lost. Next, consider in your plans pets, right? They're part of the family. They have needs. So let's go to the next one as well. With their needs, plan for what their food, the tools, the documentation, those kinds of needs that they have. Plan for also where are they going to go, right? Not every American Red Cross shelter will accept or allow animals within it. Or if you go to a hotel, right? Not every hotel will even allow the animal in it. So what are other boarding accommodations, or how are you going to take care of that animal if you have to go? We don't want to leave our poor animals behind. That creates a hazardous condition, not only for the animal, poor thing, right? We don't want to leave them to die, but we also put our professional responders in danger if they come across a scared dog who is now growling and baring its teeth and wanting to bite because they have no clue what's going on and their owner just left them, right? So consider your pets as an important part of your plans. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Marilyn Hoff. She's going to talk to us all about the stuff, right? The stuff that you gather for emergency preparedness. So, Marilyn, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Hi, everybody, and thank you for being with us this evening. I'm excited to tell you about how to get a kit, but that doesn't sound right. I want to change it to how to make a kit. And because I feel if you make your own emergency kit, you can make it more personalized and you can add more rather than go and purchase one because it won't have everything you require. So you're better off making your own emergency kit. And that's what I do with my outreach. I talk about how simple it is to make and create your own emergency kit. And of course, you can start with a backpack, a suitcase, and I suggest wheels. Wheels are wonderful. The more you add to your emergency kit, the heavier it will become. So wheels are nice. So backpacks, and let every member of the household have their own backpacks because mom and dad's trying to put everybody's items in one or two backpacks, and that is going to be extremely heavy. So everybody should have their own so they can personalize it, even the children, because brother would not want sister's things in his backpack. So let the children have their own. And moms with babies, keep that baby diaper bag refilled always and place it by the crib. That way it's ready to grab and go in case you need to evacuate. So, and let the children have ownership of their emergency kits under their bed or in their closet. And then, or there's mud rooms. A lot of people have mud rooms with hooks, and you can hang your individual backpacks on those hooks, put your names on them, or out in the garage, but know where your emergency kits are stored. And so every year, I always get my children, grandchildren for Christmas, give them something to add to their kit. Because I know my kids, they will not continue to add to their kit. They think grandma is overly prepared. But you know what? You can't be overly prepared. You prepare the best to you, what works best for you and your family. So every year I give the kids a flashlight, and I love these little flashlights. They're only $1. And so this is what I give them, even for Halloween. So all the kids have their own flashlight. And I give them lanterns for Christmas because if there's no power, then they have backup lighting. And so I know the kids won't go out and spend money. They have better ways to spend their money. So I give them these things to add to their kit. But the children, they love the flashlight. Okay, and then, oh, look at this handy little one. It looks like a light switch, but it's portable. And you switch it on and it's very bright. So, and you can get these at any stores. And so it's fun to have these handy. But so go through your home to create your emergency kits and do a scavenger hunt. Have the kids go through their bedrooms and look for things that they could add to their emergency kit. And then, but with a scavenger hunt, give them all a plastic bag and give them 15 minutes to go through and look for things. And after 15 minutes, everybody lay out all the items they collected, and the kids will tell you why they have a pair of socks in their bag to add to their emergency kit. Let the children be involved with the family emergency plan. And this is a great way to start and make it fun. And so to help with the kids, for Christmas, I give them something, a shovel for their car, or lanterns, flashlights, all types of things, because I know they won't spend their money on that. So that's an idea. So start a new tradition and give your family things to add to their emergency kit. And then depending on the season, right now it's fall, and so I put warm clothes in my emergency kit in case I have to grab and go for evacuation. So warm clothes, socks, gloves, lots of socks. Because if my hands are cold, my feet are cold, I'm cold. And then vice versa, when spring comes, I will rotate and take the winter clothes out and then put the summer clothes. And it's simple. So, and if those of you, if you have your emergency kits made right now, maybe it's time to update your kits. I've heard so many people say, oh, we have kits for every member of the household, and the kids were this small and now they're this tall. And so it's time to open up those emergency kits. So take everything out. Of course, your change of clothes, let the children, their emergency kit grow with them. And then as you're putting things back in the emergency kit, make a list. That way you're thinking, did I put those scissors in there? Now you're taking everything out of the kit to see if you put the scissors. Oh, there they are. But if you have a list, oh, the scissors are in there. So make it easy on yourself. And so every member of the household has their own emergency kit. So start at home first. Then go to the store and get your trial size shampoos, lotions, toothpaste, so forth. You don't need big things of shampoos in your emergency kit, just trial size items. And so now you have everything in your emergency kit. And I don't put food in mine for a reason, because I got conquered with mice because I had food in my backpack hanging out in the garage. So I have food and snacks in a bucket with a gamma seal lid that screws on and off the bucket. So mice and spiders, dirt and bugs cannot get to my food. So I don't put food in my emergency kit. So it's up to you what works best for you. And to keep those kits updated, I I changed my kits during the change of season. Sorry, I just had a brain cramp there. So I rotate my kits during the change of season. So when summer comes, I will put my summer clothes in. When winter comes, I will put my winter things in. So it's really simple. And okay, so now you have all your kits put together. Store them where you will remember where they're at. Kids can keep theirs under the bed or in their closet, or you have your mudroom, your garage. And so just remember where the kits are and keep them updated. Okay, so it's really simple. And start a new tradition and give something for Christmas, birthdays to add to their kits, their car kit. So I have kits everywhere. My home, for one thing, is my huge emergency kit. But if you have to evacuate, then I have my grab and go kit. And then I have a kit for my vehicle. I have a kit at my work under my desk. And so kits everywhere. And then I want to show you something that I made up because I got thinking when James talked about the grab and go emergency kits, if you receive a knock at the door and you're given 20 minutes or less to evacuate because of fire, flood in the area, and it's happened a lot here in Utah. And so it does happen. Get that knock at the door, and you're told you have 20 minutes, my brain is going to go out the door. So I got thinking, gosh, just because I know about preparedness and I have all my kits, I will panic. That's when the panic mode kicks in. So I made myself a grab and go list. This is my brain because I don't want to forget anything. So on my grab and go list, the first thing I'm going to grab, ladies, is my purse. And guys, grab your wallet. You're set, and then it looks like a long list. Oh my gosh, that's a lot to grab. My purse. Then my cell phone and my charger will go in my purse. Then my medication in my purse. And then I added on this list seniors and baby special needs. Baby special needs, those of you with babies, keep the baby diaper bag refilled always, place it by the crib. And don't forget baby's binky and blankie. So that's a special need for babies. And for seniors, they have special needs. I wear a hearing aid, so I have hearing aid batteries in my purse, my emergency kit, home. So batteries everywhere. And because batteries only last a week with my hearing aid, so I have to be stocked up with batteries. Okay, and then I'm going to give you an example. This lady approached me after a presentation and she said, you know, Marilyn, I wished I made myself a list like this because I did receive that knock at the door. So I grabbed my purse, my medication, and my phone. She did all the right stuff, right? The first three items, and she grabbed her puppy. And so she did the right stuff. As the firefighter was taking her to the shelter, she just yelled out, "Stop! You need to turn back." "No, ma'am, there's a fire back there." "I forgot my dentures." And so it happens. And I hear you all laughing. But to her, that was a disaster. Poor thing. And so that's why I thought this would be helpful. And then I put flash drives James talked about your important document. And so, yes, my daughter and I, we copied every card from our wallet, front and back. And we put scanned the cards and saved them on a flash drive. And so we did this with our wallets, we did our birth certificates, marriage license, all your important documents, your banking, your medical records, house papers, all right here. And so I find it easy for me. You do what works best for you. James talked about you can reduce your house papers, your birth certificate, and make a smaller document. So, but this works for us. And then we also did one flash drive for pictures. You do not have time to take pictures off the wall. There's just no way. Or your picture album. So we took pictures of pictures on the wall, our furniture, our vehicle, the VIN number, your toys, your camper, RV, trailer, things like that. Take pictures and put it on a flash drive. And if I'm going to back up a little bit on your flash drive with all your important documents. If you need to make changes, plug it in, make the changes, save it. Here it is. And I told my daughter, do not carry the flash drives in your purse. There's one, J for Jennifer, M for me, Marilyn. And she said, well, have the password, Mom. I said, no. We have smartphones, smart TVs, and smart cars, and we have smart thieves out there that know how to break codes and passwords. So do not carry this on your key ring or in your purse. So I lock mine in my fireproof box, and that's what this is all about. Here I am, says flash drive. And so I know right where to go to get my flash drive out of the fireproof box. And so for Christmas, I bought my daughter a fireproof box so she can put her flash drives in it. So this is really handy because just like the poor lady that forgot her dentures, it does happen. So make yourself your own grab and go, and let the kids make a grab and go list too. Maybe they don't want to forget certain things. So make this a fun project, okay? And on my list, I don't have to wear glasses, but I have readers. And so and they're always on my desk. So I don't want to forget my reader. So we all have special needs. And so put it on your list so you don't forget anything. And and you know what? When you get that knock at the door, they're not going to kick you out on the street. They'll have you go to a school, a church, American Red Cross, shelter in place to stay a night or two. So pack your bags like you're going on a trip. Have things in there that will suit you, that your needs, change of clothes, socks, and so forth. Okay? So it's simple. It really is. And don't forget to keep your kids updated. Okay, so my part is to talk about the 12 areas of emergency preparedness. And before I introduce you to the 12 areas, you can go online to beready.utah.gov, and it will give you the disaster supply kit list. And on this list is everything, the 12 areas right here. So beready.utah.gov. And so bring this up and you will get started on your preparedness. And on the back is things for your vehicle right here, a list of things, and then for schools and business, your disaster supply kits. Okay, so this will come handy right here. Okay, and then so the 12 areas of, oh boy, I was just told that my time has gone by. So I have 1 minute. Goodness, I wish I can be with you guys longer. So go on beready.utah.gov and it will give you all the Be Ready Utah brochures we have for you, available for you. So, and then as you go on beready.utah.gov, you will see videos and ideas. So bring that website up and go browsing and be more prepared than you think you are. Okay, my time's up. Gosh, thank you, everybody. And I am going to turn the time over to Jeff Johnson and hope he talks better than me. Bye, everybody.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and I'm going to talk to you tonight a little bit about getting involved. And one of the ways you can get involved is to have Marilyn come talk to your organization. She's in great demand, and I can tell you right now, she can come and do this for a long time with you tonight. And so we'll talk about how you can do that here in just a second. You know, the best part about getting involved is I think it's fun. You actually get to help make your community, your neighborhood, your city a better place. And that's a really, really good thing. We're going to talk a little bit right now about ways to get involved. There are many, and we're not going to cover them all, but we're going to give you some good ideas of where to get started. I'm going to reach out to tell you to reach out to your family and friends first. That's the best way to get involved. Make sure that those you care about and you love are ready and prepared and are going to survive something that happens. Look in your neighborhood a little bit too for people who have access and functional needs. That's a really important part of where you live. If there are people who can't take care of themselves, you might want to work into your plans about how to take care of those kind of people. But as the slide says here, there are lots of places you can get involved: work, school, community. Does your work have disaster plans? Can you get involved in helping develop those or maintain those? And obviously, there's nothing more important in life than keeping our kids safe. And so if there's a school where your kids attend, or even just one in your neighborhood that you would like to be able to attend and help them with developing plans, that's a really good idea. And school isn't just limited to kids' school. If you're going to school, if you're attending higher education and furthering your knowledge and trying to work for a degree, look there as well. Can you help? Can you get involved? It's a great place. And there's many places in your community you can get involved. Check with your city or your county and see if there's a community emergency response team that is formed in your city. We have 84 of them statewide as of last count. And we're constantly training people. There are over 100,000 people in the state of Utah that have taken the community emergency response team training. And if you want a way to get really well prepared and to gain a lot of knowledge and skills that can help on that day when your community and your neighbors and friends need you, CERT is a great way to do that. And again, going back to the schools, parent teachers associations are really focused on keeping their schools safe, on being prepared, on being ready to be able to handle anything that happens. And PTAs are another great way to get involved and try to help your local schools be ready. And they're always looking for another hand and another face to come and help them. So just remember that. Red Cross up on the screen here. Boy, talk about the volunteer organization. You can, besides getting first aid training and other training there, you can go help become a shelter person, for when people have to evacuate their homes. And there are several dozen ways you can help with the Red Cross. And all you've got to do is jingle their phone, and they will welcome you and train you and get you involved in those kind of things. We talk about Maryland coming and talking to you. Our Be Ready Utah team that you're seeing here tonight will come anywhere, to your church, to your school, to your community, to your workplace, and we will do presentations. We have dozens of presentations that we can actually bring to you, and we're constantly doing this all over the place. I'll be at a place in Layton tomorrow night doing one, and we constantly go out and help people get prepared. So go to the beready.utah.gov site, and right at the top of the first page on the left side is a link there where you can request a presentation. And then you can have Marilyn come and finish what she started tonight. She's going to come in here. And I'll tell you what, everybody that hears Marilyn walks away better off and better prepared. So it's a good thing for you to do. Social media. Brian, who was our first presenter tonight, has done a fabulous job with our social media. And not only is it educational and informative, it's fun, it's entertaining. And so I would tell you to get onto YouTube and go to our channel and look at some of the things there. You've seen a couple of them tonight here, but also Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. Please follow us. And there is so much there that, like I said, it's not only educational, it's actually fun. So next slide. The thing most important in getting involved is reach out to others, see who you can help around you, especially in your realm, in your life. Try to get people to come and help. One of the things about helping is you got to understand that a lot of people during a disaster want to come and help. And although reaching out to others is the very simplest thing you can do, we don't want you to instill fear in people. Don't talk about the big bad earthquake that can happen or some other scary kind of event. We just want you to help people understand that it's a process, that it's a step-by-step process. And then we always say that it's a lifestyle. Preparedness is not a project. It's not something you're going to tackle on. It's not something you're going to tackle on Saturday or next month or do it in a short amount of time. It's kind of a step-by-step process. And one of the things you can do as you do your step-by-step process is share that with other people. Show them your water heater that has been secured. Show them your water storage and things that you've done at your house. And this is a way to help them understand that they too can be prepared and you can share this. We're asking you to encourage them and be positive and not try to scare them into doing something. It's kind of a one step at a time thing. Basically, just reach out to those who you care about. And that includes, your work, your community, your church, your places of worship. There's lots of places you can step in and get involved. We always say any time is a good time to talk about preparedness. Slide. It's not starting, Brian. There we go. Huh. We love digital gremlins. Technology is always so much fun. There we go.
Hey, Ken.
Hey,
How was your weekend?
it was good. I mowed the lawn and watched the game. You?
I filled my emergency water storage containers with water. I found out if you're using city tap water, it's already treated and ready for long-term storage. You don't have to add anything to it.
Huh. I should do that.
Like I said, they are fun and informative, and they're short, and you can share them. If a disaster happens, we want you to volunteer, and I can guarantee your community wants you to volunteer, but the community also can't be inundated by a whole bunch of spontaneous, unorganized volunteers. And so we're asking you that if you do go and volunteer, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Don't go unless you're asked. Having a whole bunch of spontaneous volunteers, they suddenly have to get food and water for them, maybe even shelter if it's a weather event, creates a problem for the disaster managers. And so you need to make sure that you only go and help if you're requested to. But also, if you go, think about this. You need to go self-contained. There may not be grocery stores or hotels. You're going to have your own food, your own water, your own shelter, and you're going to have to be able to survive on your own in that environment. So some things to think about if you go and help. If they do ask you to come and help, by all means, please. A great way to get involved is to go and help during a disaster. And so it's just the key to this is only go if you're asked. Unsolicited volunteers sometimes create a problem. One of the best ways you can donate, and honestly, this is probably one of the best ways to donate, if not this alone, is to donate cash. But in this, you have to be very, very careful. A whole lot of scammers and fraudulent programs show up during disasters. And so I'm going to say research where you're spending your money, where you're donating your money, and make sure it's a reputable source, and make sure that the money is going to the volunteers. So I'm going to highly encourage this. I'll tell you right now, I've donated twice in the last month and to things that I care about because I know they need that money. They can take that money and use it close to the source of the disaster to buy the things that they need. And sometimes that's the best way to get it there. If they ask for specific items, they're asking for water or they're asking for clothing or certain kinds of things, then by all means donate those. But don't just drop off everything you were thinking about taking to the Salvation Army or the DI. That's happened in this state, and that really creates a problem. Donate what they're asking for. One of the communities here in Utah a few years back on a disaster kind of unknowingly asked for donations that they could send to this disaster. I'm not going to say who it was, but by the time the drop-off point got to where it was overflowing, they started stacking it inside their government offices. And I actually got a chance to walk through there, and you couldn't walk into the room. You couldn't walk down the hallways. The hallways were narrow because they had things stacked on both sides. Then they tried to figure out how they were going to transport all of that to the disaster, which was over 1,000 miles away. And eventually they just figured out they couldn't. And they tried to donate as much of it they could responsibly to good organizations like the Salvation Army and the Red Cross. And then they took 6 dump truck loads to the dump. And that's what happens with a lot of unsolicited donations. They have to be able to manage those, to organize them, to sort them, and actually to transport them and get them distributed. And so there's a lot of problems, especially if it's a distance, especially like the recent fires in Maui and Lahaina. There's a big ocean between us and them, and it's hard to get things there. So sometimes cash is the best option. So think about that. If you donate things, make sure they're new, they're clean, and they're labeled, and it's something they want and can use and can need. So with that, I'm going to turn the time back over to Anna to wrap us up here a little bit, and we can probably head into the question and answer section.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, team. Very great information shared here tonight. We're hoping that you all are finding that this information is beneficial. Couple of slides that I do want to share is this one currently posted. What we've all kind of mentioned in different ways is practice, practice, practice. Preparedness takes practice. Hold fire drills within your household, within your workplace. Follow the fire drill exercises, the evacuation drills, earthquake drills. Practice, because when we are familiar with these protective actions, they're going to come. They're going to come more natural when that time of need arises. Hold tabletop exercises, which is basically a hands-on preparedness exercise that instead of just looking at a screen or reading a book, you can actually do a hands-on activity. Also, practice holding a disaster supply kit dinner. Use your household supply kit to live on for 1 meal, 2 meals, maybe 3 days. Be adjusted to it. Understand what you're saving and how to use it. And another good practice is going camping. So those are some good pieces and suggestions. There are other ways to practice. Just remember to take it one piece at a time and stay consistent. Go ahead to the next slide. And always remember, in a disaster, you do not rise to the occasion. You sink to your level of preparedness. So the more prepared you are, the more you're going to be capable when that time comes. We do have a couple of extra minutes. James, do we have some questions which may be good to answer at this time? We have about 5 or 7 minutes before we close up.
Yeah, we do have one question. Sarah put in the chat right towards the beginning. She was wondering, how do we prepare on a budget? So curious what the group's thoughts are about preparing on a budget.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I've got some ideas of some things that you can do to prepare on a budget. Like I said, the first two that we just talked about of being informed and making a plan, most of that doesn't take any money at all. You start talking about money and things when you get to the kit part, where you start getting the stuff. But when you're just talking about the mental part of preparedness, which is probably about 50% or more of emergency preparedness, it doesn't cost money at all. Now, the get a kit parts, a lot of those things, you already have them around your house. If you're talking about, a lot of times we think emergency preparedness is 1,000 pounds of wheat that I got to keep in the basement, and that's costs a lot of money. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. If your food storage is a month's supply of just what's in your pantry, that's stuff that you're normally buying all the time. And maybe when you go to the store, instead of buying 1 can of peaches, get 2 cans of peaches. If you're buying 1 box of macaroni and cheese, get 2 boxes of macaroni and cheese. Now, it does take some commitment. You do need to budget your time and some money. You may need to set some money aside. If the ATMs go out, if you need to evacuate, you might need to have some cash on hand. But that doesn't mean that right now you've got to pull out a whole bunch of money out of the bank and have it sitting aside. No, it's one piece at a time. You don't want to create an emergency, create an economic emergency by trying to get ready for a large-scale disaster emergency. So take it according to how fast you are comfortable within your budget. And remember that most of emergency preparedness is here, not here.
And Brian, if I can add to that, I think if people are like trying to put together a little kit in their car, they need a blanket, they need a flashlight, they need a pair of walking shoes. They need those basic things in their car. They can walk around their house and find that. It's not a trip to the store. They can just get it out of their house. Go grab a flashlight. Go get an old pair of shoes that you can throw in there. Throw in some food that'll survive, a can of peaches or some nuts in a sealed container. And you can just put together a disaster supply kit out of your house for your car in a matter of minutes.
And I would say to that too, just one additional piece on there is, as you maintain your preparedness kits, like I believe Marilyn mentioned earlier, and you renew materials as time goes on, maybe you can gradually improve on what and how much is in your kit.
Yeah, great suggestions from everybody. And thank you for that. One last thought: on the Be Ready Utah website, in the Be Ready Utah library, is a downloadable document with our top 10 list for preparedness on a budget. Consider that. Go ahead and check that out. Here's one more question before we run out of time. How do you prioritize what to prepare for? Any thoughts from the group on that one?
Know your area, know your environment that you live in. Sorry, Brian.
Brian, you want to do the rules of 3 or 4?
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with. One thing you want to think about when preparing for emergencies are your own personal prioritized needs. If If you don't know what to do in the first few seconds of an emergency, those protective actions that we talked about, drop, cover, hold on, stop, drop, and roll, when thunder roars, go indoors, you can perish. You may not survive if you don't know the protective action. So your first priority of things to do, learn the protective actions. Again, doesn't cost any money, just takes some learning. The second thing, if you cannot breathe for 3 to 4 minutes, you may not survive. So you want to make sure that whatever environment you can breathe, whether it's because of dust in the air or you're underwater, maybe you need to learn how to swim. I don't know, but breathing is your 3 to 4 minute priority. The next one, 3 to 4 hours, is shelter. You need to have adequate shelter, or you may not survive the next 3 to 4 hours. Now you say, now wait, Brian, I'm outside all the time for a lot longer than 3 or 4 hours, and I'm okay. I ain't dead yet. Right, but we're talking about extreme situations here. Extreme heat and extreme cold. If you don't have adequate shelter, and it doesn't mean just a roof over your head, adequate shelter is the means of maintaining your body's core temperature. If you get too hot and you have that hyperthermia, you may not survive. You get too cold and have that hypo, meaning below hypothermia, you may not survive. So you need to have the means and the knowledge of how to survive that priority of the next 3 to 4 hours. The next one, 3 to 4 days. I've got my water bottle. Yeah, you've got to have water. Or if you don't have clean drinking water for 3 to 4 days, you may not survive. So make sure we always think about getting that 1,000 pounds of wheat. I keep talking about the 1,000 pounds of wheat and having the peaches and the salsa in your basement. Way more important than that in the shorter period of time, 3 to 4 days, you've got to have clean drinking water. We recommend having 14 gallons minimum. That's 1 gallon per person per day. So if 2 weeks worth is 14 gallons per person per day. So a family of 4, you're talking 56 gallons. Go ahead, Jeff.
That's a minimum.
That's bare bones minimum. If you've ever actually tried to survive on only 1 gallon of water a day, it's kind of hard. Okay, so that, and then 3 to 4 weeks, now we're talking is food. Now you'll be dead at 3 to 4 weeks without food, but you can actually last a few days before your energy levels start really dropping off considerably. And then you will get sick and perish after 3 or 4 weeks without food. So if you're talking priorities, do the mental things, protective actions, think about your breathing. Usually that's not one we can control as much, but then shelter supplies, water supplies, food supplies.
The rule of 3 to 4.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We'll go ahead and we'll wrap up on that. There's a couple of minutes left, but in our departure, we'll take a little bit of time. I want to be sure to remind you guys of the very important question that you all want to keep in your mind and take check and balance on periodically, and that is, are you ready? And then you can evaluate there as far as your preparedness level. Just a reminder, as the guys have mentioned, you can, let's see, the webinar will be posted to our website. Sorry, Brian, did you have something to say?
No, just about your comment about being ready.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this for a number of years, and I cannot say I am ready. There is never a point where I can say I am ready for every single thing. There's always more I can learn. There's always more I can do. There's always more that I can change in my plans and in the things that I have. So don't get complacent and think you're done. But then at the same time, don't get overwhelmed and think, well, if Brian's been doing it for 20 years and he's not ready, I don't know what I'm going to do. No, well, you want to think of, you can do this. It is a process. Take it one step at a time. Every little step that you do, you're that much more prepared. Think about, if something happens, you will be that much better prepared than you were before.
Brian, if I may, it's not a project, it's a lifestyle.
There you go.
Okay, and
And
again, that's what I was going to mention there is, as Jeff mentioned earlier, and I think it's a very wise piece of word, and that is preparedness is a lifestyle. It is a constant way of life. Making a kit, being informed, uh, being involved, and keeping your plan updated. That is cyclical. That is always going to need to be reviewed and renewed. I want to mention again this webinar. The audio will be posted on our website at beready.utah.gov, and kind of think of the four tenets as well as the ways of approaching preparedness with family, business, schools, and community. We will also mention again to you, James, you had shared it a couple of times, and that is on our website. We do have the library, which contains very much information within brochures, videos, the YouTube channel, and then also, I believe it was Jeff that mentioned earlier as well, is the social media. Click in, follow us on social media, share your thoughts with us, share it with everybody. That being said, we will be sending an email out within about 24 hours that will contain a survey. We are very interested in your input, your critique on us as instructors, educators, teachers, and then also the content that we are providing. I want to say thank you again, Be Ready Utah team, and thank you people for attending. And we hope all of you have a wonderful night and that you stay prepared.
Have a good one, everybody.